Welcome back. Many growers of roses in New Mexico are concerned with problems they see in their roses. Today we're going to ask Dr. Mike English, Extension Service entomologist, about one of the problems we see. Mike, a lot of people find their rose flowers are damaged before they open. They see a lot of damage around the outside of the flower in particular, and they want to know what's going on.
Well, you know, it's particularly a problem, I think, on the lighter colored roses. They're a little more visible, and the damage is a little more visible, I think. This is an insect problem. This is one of the most common questions I'm asked about roses. I got probably 100 or so roses here in my backyard, and the lighter ones I've always had problems with. I don't use many insecticides, and I end up with a little problem. As you said, what we see is these buds, as they begin to open, you see an awful lot of damage here around those tips. What it is a small insect called a thrip, a flower thrip. The western flower thrip is the most common one that we see here. They get into these young buds and they have a rasping mouth part, and they begin to suck juices out of the end of those. They use those rasping mouth part, and then the plant tries to seal off and it turns brown, actually begins to rot a little bit. And then when they open, we end up seeing an awful lot of damage in around the tips. They open like this. We've got some right here, for example, that open up, and you can see the browning on those tips, and they certainly aren't very attractive. It isn't something that you'd want to cut and put on your kitchen table to look at. It may not be too bad from driving down the road, but when you get here close, it looks kind of tough. Probably the best treatment for these things is a systemic insecticide. There's a number of those on the market. There's a systemic rose food where you can use a fertilizer and an insecticide combination to help your roses along, and they'll usually give you some directions on the back of it, but it usually requires several treatments through the year. As you said, the first flush of flowers is the most important on these roses, and these are the ones where we see the most damage, and we see the most damage on our lighter flowers. If you're going to try to grow that perfect rose, you're going to go to the rose show, you're certainly going to have to use probably a systemic insecticide to control the western flower thrip.
And I think you really don't want to use the food combined with insecticide to control bugs if you're over fertilizing. So you want to use a spray on when necessary, or use the food when you can.
Certainly with any of this stuff, Curtis, and you know this as well as I, certainly, are probably better, that there's a lot more art than there is science involved in growing roses, and you have to look at the quality of your foliage and decide whether you're getting enough nutrition. If you've got a general idea of what you put on, how much nitrogen you want on, how much phosphorus, that sort of thing. But you're right, and sometimes buying that systemic, it's a convenience thing. It's a lot easier to buy a systemic rose food because you got both there, but you can over fertilize these roses.
I've seen a lot of damage from that.
Yeah.
Well, I see them in here. They are really doing some work on your roses.
Yeah.
We're in the rose garden with Frank Olguin, county agent in Valencia County. Frank, you get a lot of questions about roses this time of year.
Oh, absolutely.
And you've got one right now.
You bet. One of the more common questions this time of the year on roses is a lot of people are out there and looking at their roses, and they find a lot of dead wood, and they want to know exactly what they can do to take care of that.
Okay, what we see here is winter damage. This is residual injury from the winter, and it never hurts to cut off the dead wood. It's okay to cut dead wood any time of the year. So you go in and just prune out all that's dead, get it out of the way, remove it from the plant. Sometimes you may have to go to a larger tool if it's really big wood. Managed to make it with that one, but there's more to cut, but it's safe to cut at this time of the year. Frank Olguin, county agent for Valencia County, receives a lot of rose questions. He's got another rose question for us.
Curtis, another common question this time of the year is individuals calling in, they've got a rose bush that has gotten fairly large, it interferes with a walkway, and they want to know what they can do to prune it without damaging the plant.
Well, there are things you can do, it's not a problem, but rule of thumb is that you prune to the first 5 leaflet leaf. If we look at this one, here's a single leaflet leaf. This one has 3 leaflets. There's the first 5 leaflet leaf. So here's the point at which we can make the cut. However, if the rose is too large, we can cut below that. So we can cut down here, reduce it even more. And the point in doing that is we get a good strong stem from which a new stem will grow. The new stem then can carry the flower without having it wilt over. If we have too weak a stem, it's going to wilt. So by cutting it down is good. Another way to be pruning your roses in the summer is to go ahead and cut some long stem roses if you want to reduce the size of the rose bush. So go ahead and come in here, count down at least to the first 5 leaflet leaf, but you can go below that. Let's go to this point right here. Cut it off, and we have a nice long stem rose that we can take indoors and use for indoor decoration.